But I will, because we don't have a lot of time, so I'd like you to maybe read some poetry. Is there something in your newest collection that you'd like to read that's really really passionate about?
Yeah, I'll read a piece that's actually a sonnet.
Okay.
So it's short, and it's a number of the pieces in this book are, well, the title, What Is This Thing Called Love, is a Cole Porter tune, as you probably know.
All right.
And so this is Stolen Moments. What happened, happened once, so now it's best in memory. An orange he sliced, the skin unbroken, then the knife, the chilled wedge lifted to my mouth, his mouth, the thin membrane between us, the exquisite orange, tongue, orange, my nakedness and his, the way he pushed me up against the fridge. Now I get to feel his hands again, the kiss that didn't last, but sent some neural twin flashing wildly through the cortex. Love's merciless, the way it travels in and keeps emitting light. Beside the stove, we ate an orange, and there were purple flowers on the table, and we still had ours.
Wow.
So that's one.
It's really nice.
Thanks.
You've got another one there? You wanna...
Yeah, I'll read one more that's kind of different. The book's kind of divided up into poems about love, poems about death, poems about the world, poems about drinking.
Right.
And then whatever's left,
Right.
and whatever sort of encompasses all that is in the last part. So this is from the world section, and it's called The Way of the World.
Okay.
We know the ugly hate the beautiful, and the bitter losers are all seething over bad coffee, washed in the sleazy fluorescence of fast food restaurants. We know the wheelchairs hate the shoes, and the medicines envy the vitamins, which is why sometimes a whole bottle of sleeping pills will gather like a wave and rush down someone's throat to drown in the sour ocean of the stomach. And let's not even mention the poor, since hardly anyone does. It's the way of the world, the sorrowful versus the happy, and the stupid against everyone, especially themselves. So don't pretend you're glad when your old friends get lucky in work or love, while you're still drifting through life like a lobster in a restaurant tank. Go on, admit it, you'd claw them to death if you could. But you're helpless, knocking futilely against clear glass you can't break through. They're opening champagne, oblivious of you, just as you don't notice how many backs you've scrambled over to get this far, your black eyes glittering, your slow limbs grimly and steadily working.
That's beautiful. How would you describe her poetry? What?
Great.
In a word, choice word.
No, how would I describe? It's very good. It's wonderful. It's full of imagery and surprising ways of seeing what's really there.
Right.
I mean, it's full of real things of life, but put in a stranger way, in a way that makes it's familiar and strange at the same time, so that we really see it and really feel it.
Yeah.
And we awaken. We're not kept in the trance. And I go to Kim's poetry to see things and to see things in the way that things really are, and that I miss sometimes.
Reality poetry?
Well, yeah, poetry is the ultimate reality. Yeah, that's what it's about. It's about what does it mean to be alive? Why are we here? What are we doing? What does it feel like?
What does it feel like?
That's what poetry traffics in, I think.
Yeah.
Is there a rhyme structure here that you write in, or I mean, I'm not technical. Iambic, pentameter.
Yeah, right. Well, the first poem I read was a sonnet. So a sonnet is in a particular meter and has rhyme to it, and
but she's working a lot in slant rhyme, right?
Yeah,
in the sonnet. So you might not hear it as a heavy, exact rhyme.
I see.
But I think that the thing that's important is the music. So that can be more formal, which is meter and rhyme, which comes from the whole, a very long tradition in poetry in English and in other cultures too. but it can be more or less formal. But I think the thing for me is that I look for that musicality in the language and for something to sort of sing in some way. And that's what I'm always trying to do with the language, is make it sing. And any poet, I think, is doing that.
And now you're putting you put music to it on your CD, which is kind of interesting. And so you call it word poetry or word
Well,
poem?
those are poems that Susan and I both wrote as poems. So we meant them for the page, but then whenever you perform a poem and read it aloud and bring it back to the oral tradition, which is after all where poetry started, you know, people talking, telling the stories of the tribe and keeping the history of the tribe. And so, excuse me, whenever you bring it back to that, there's a whole interesting element added. And then if you add music to that, there's this other thing that can happen. So, you know, some of the pieces on the CD are just straight, they're just straight word. And in others, we have a saxophone player in some, and the guitarist in some, and
harmonica.
And I play harmonica on a couple of pieces. And so it was just ways to enhance it and make it another thing. You know, but what we both hope is that the experience you have on the page is also its own thing and meaningful.
Right. That's beautiful. Would you have a poem that you like to read?
Sure.
I mean, there's one on your website which has been what I've noticed was it's the small pleasures, great sweetness.
Right.
Or you know, whatever you'd like to read.
Yeah, I'll just read this one.
Okay.
It's because I think it has something to do with what poetry is to me. Although it's not really about that exactly. In the art gallery. The painting of flowers next to the painting of flames. And I remember that time years ago when the psychiatrist said, "You feel too much. You are too sensitive. Take these," giving me a bottle of pills. I took them to the beach, watched the light become flame on the water, and along the ragged cliffs, small flowers like blue stars. The world a painting I couldn't live in. I opened the bottle, then put it down, pills spilling on the sand. Waves carried the flames and didn't mind the burning, the arising from and disappearing into the vastness. I swam, let the waves take me, then treaded water, looking at the sky, a silver tray full of the most beautiful nothing. I swam back. The water was black. I could sink beyond caring, but I wanted to live, to be there with the beauty and the burning, and let it be too much.
Wow, that's a lot of imagery there. Really, that's incredible.
Beautiful.
That's incredible. What's behind that poem? Where did you write that? Was there some place? How long did it take you to write poetry like that?
It's taken me a long time to write poetry like that. I mean, not that that's that good or anything, but I mean, I have written poetry all my life since I fell in love with it when I was 10. But it just took me a long time to learn how to revise and to really, I just would write poem after poem, and then I met Kim and Dorian Locks too, who's a very fine poet, and so it's just, I guess I would say, to answer that question, it's taken me my whole life
I see.
until now, and so it just, but what's behind that poem is actually Diablo Valley College, where I work, and I take my students every year to see the juried art show that the students put on. The students put on their own work of their art, and I take my students in to look at it, and then they write poems to a particular piece that they like. And I started the painting of flowers next to the painting of flames, and I was just in the art gallery with my students, and that was my first line, and then that led me to think about flowers and flames and the burning and the beauty. And
what